The fall of Angkor. How the greatest city on earth disappeared without a war. 1,000 years ago, there was a city so large that it reshaped the land around it. Forests were cleared. Rivers were redirected. Stone was lifted, carved, and aligned with the sky itself. Hundreds of thousands of people lived their entire lives believing this city was permanent. Its name was Angkor. It was not destroyed by an enemy. It was not burned. It was not conquered. The greatest city on earth disappeared quietly, and history almost forgot it. Angkor was the heart of the Khmer Empire, located in present-day Cambodia. Between the 9th and 15th centuries, it became the largest pre-industrial city ever built by humans. At its peak, Angkor was home to nearly 1 million people. At a time when most cities struggled to support tens of thousands, Angkor expanded across hundreds of square kilometers. This scale was not accidental. Angkor was not built on strength alone. It was built on water. The Khmer rulers understood something deeply important. In Southeast Asia, power did not come from walls or weapons. Power came from controlling rain. Monsoon seasons brought immense amounts of water in a short time. Too much rain meant floods. Too little meant famine. Survival depended on managing both extremes. So the Khmer engineers built a system unlike anything the world had seen. Massive reservoirs called barays stored monsoon rain. Canals redirected rivers across the landscape. Smaller channels fed rice fields with precise control. Water moved through Angkor like blood through a body. As long as it flowed correctly, the city lived. This water system allowed Angkor to break natural limits. Rice could be grown multiple times a year. Food surpluses supported craftsmen, priests, builders, and administrators. Temples rose. Roads expanded. The population grew. Angkor did not simply adapt to its environment. It engineered it. At the center of this system stood the king. In Khmer belief, the king was not just a ruler. He was a divine figure responsible for maintaining harmony between heaven and earth. His ability to control water was proof of cosmic order. When the reservoirs filled and the crops thrived, it meant the universe was in balance. Angkor Wat itself was designed to represent the sacred Mount Meru, the center of the cosmos. Every stone was a message. This city was not temporary. It was eternal. For centuries, that belief seemed justified. Angkor expanded while other cities declined. It absorbed shocks, survived wars. It adapted to political changes. The water system kept working, and because it worked for so long, no one imagined it could fail. But no system is immortal. Angkor depended on predictability, regular monsoons, gradual floods, manageable droughts. The entire city assumed that nature would behave tomorrow as it always had. Then the climate changed. Scientific evidence now tells a clear story. Tree rings, lake sediments, and soil records show that beginning in the late 13th century, Southeast Asia entered a period of extreme climate instability. Monsoons became stronger than normal. Heavy rains damaged canals and reservoirs. Embankments collapsed. Water moved too fast, carrying sediment that clogged the system. Then, after years of flooding, the rains weakened. Severe droughts followed. The reservoirs dropped to dangerous levels. Channels that once fed fields became dry scars across the land. The system designed to handle balance was now being pushed to extremes it was never meant to survive. Repairing Angkor's water network was not simple. This was not a single dam or canal. It was thousands of interconnected structures spread across enormous distances. Fixing one failure required labor, coordination, and time. Each delay made the next failure worse. Sediment built up. Channels narrowed. Water stopped reaching distant fields. Rice production declined. Food security weakened. For the people of Angkor, this crisis cut deeper than hunger. Because if the water failed, it meant something far worse than environmental trouble. It meant the king was losing divine favor. The Khmer ruler's authority rested on his ability to maintain cosmic balance. When floods destroyed fields and drought dried reservoirs, that belief fractured. Faith weakened. Loyalty weakened. The system that held society together began to loosen. As conditions worsened, people made quiet decisions. Farmers moved closer to reliable rivers. Families relocated to smaller communities. Merchants followed new trade routes. No alarms sounded. No walls fell. Angkor began to empty one household at a time. At the same time, the world beyond Angkor was changing. Trade shifted toward maritime routes. Coastal cities gained importance. Inland capitals lost influence. Angkor's location, once ideal for land-based power, became less relevant in a world connected by sea. The Khmer elite adapted by moving political centers southward. The empire continued, but Angkor did not. The temples remained. Stone structures built to last for eternity stood quietly as people left. Rituals stopped. Maintenance ended. Vegetation crept in. Without constant care, nature began to reclaim what humans had taken. By the 15th century, Angkor was no longer a living city. It was a monument. The jungle closed around it, slowly and patiently. Trees pushed through roofs. Roots cracked stone. Canals filled with soil and plants. What had once been a masterpiece of human engineering became invisible beneath green cover. Centuries later, when outsiders encountered Angkor, they struggled to understand what they were seeing. How could a city this large exist and then vanish? The assumption was simple. War must have destroyed it. Cities fall to enemies. That is how history usually works. But Angkor tells a different story. There is no evidence of a final catastrophic invasion. No widespread burning. No mass graves. Instead, the evidence points inward. Angkor collapsed under the weight of its own success. Its water system was too vast, too rigid, too dependent on stability. When the climate shifted, the system could not adapt quickly enough. There was no way to scale down safely. No way to simplify without collapse. What once made Angkor powerful made it fragile. Modern satellite technology has revealed the true scale of Angkor. Hidden beneath modern farmland are the outlines of canals, reservoirs, and roads stretching far beyond the visible temples. Angkor was not a small city swallowed by jungle. It was a megacity erased by time. The fall of Angkor is not a story of ignorance. It is a story of intelligence, of planning, of confidence, and of believing that control means permanence. Angkor's people did not fail. They built one of the greatest cities humanity has ever known. But they built it on balance. And balance is temporary. Angkor did not end with fire or blood. It ended with water flowing the wrong way, with systems breaking slowly, with people leaving quietly. Today, Angkor stands as stone and silence. A reminder that civilizations do not always collapse loudly. Sometimes they fade. And by the time we notice, they are already gone. The streets that once echoed with voices are empty. The markets that once fed an empire are silent. The canals that once carried life hold only shadows of movement beneath still water. What remains is not a disaster scene. There is no moment of destruction to point to. No single year to mark with a red circle in history books. Only absence. Angkor did not collapse in a way that demanded attention. It did not force the world to remember it. It allowed itself to be forgotten. That is what makes its fall different and unsettling, because Angkor did not believe it was vulnerable. Every generation before had inherited a city that worked. Water arrived when it was needed. Crops grew. Temples stood firm. The system survived longer than any one human life. So no one planned for failure. Why would they? The system had always recovered before. Until one day it didn't. Not because the people were careless. Not because they lacked knowledge. But because the world they had engineered for no longer existed. The climate Angkor was built for disappeared. And the city could not follow it. When adaptation failed, people did what humans have always done. They moved. Quietly. Logically. Without ceremony. No one declared the end of Angkor. No decree closed its gates. No final procession left the city together. The empire simply redirected its future elsewhere. Angkor was left behind. Stone temples watched generations pass without worship. Canals filled slowly, season by season. Jungle routes took decades to claim what armies could never destroy. Nature did not rush. It did not need to. Time was on its side. For hundreds of years, Angkor existed in silence. A city still standing but no longer alive. Known only to those who lived nearby, its meaning fading with each generation. When the outside world finally encountered it again, Angkor felt impossible. A city too large to have been forgotten, too advanced to have failed without violence. And yet there it was, proof that collapse does not always arrive with chaos. Sometimes it arrives as normalization, as smaller harvests that feel manageable, as repairs delayed just one more season, as people leaving one household at a time, until no one remembers when the city stopped being a city. Angkor forces an uncomfortable realization. The greatest threats to civilizations are not always enemies. Sometimes they are systems stretched just beyond their limits. Sometimes they are changes so gradual that no one notices them until adaptation is no longer possible. Angkor was not defeated. It was outgrown by the world it helped create. And that is why its story still speaks even now. Because Angkor was brilliant. Because Angkor was successful. Because Angkor believed permanence was achievable. And because it was wrong. The stones still stand. The water still moves beneath the ground. But the city is gone. And it will never return. Will never return. Will never return.